Antigravity is Google's new IDE with Gemini 3 baked in. It's supposed to allow developers to vibe code like they've never vibed before. It was backed by what was looking like an amazing piece of software that Google DeepMind had purchased from a startup called Windsurf. Everything was looking good. I was so excited that I had chosen anti-gravity as my first video topic, thinking it would be an easy puff piece. Unfortunately, anti-gravity was a huge letdown. So far, I've clocked about 20 hours of pure coding time with it, trying to improve old projects, starting new ones, and seeing how far I can push it until it breaks. And my experience was not great. As you'll see in this video, the lack of parallel agents and the weird way it handles things in the UI is actually only the second biggest gripe. The first is just how limited you are with tokens. There is a massive gap between what Google promised and what was actually shipped to all of us developers. So stay tuned while we go through the full report in this first ever episode of Bare Bones Code. Okay, let's rewind a bit and load up on some context. If you missed the drama, here's the short version. Back in July 2025, OpenAI was sniffing around a startup called Windsurf, who had this amazing AI-infused IDE everyone was drooling over. Google lets it be known that they were going to buy them for $3 billion, and everything looked great until it wasn't. Eventually, the deal craters. Then, in the 11th hour, in swoops Google DeepMind. They drop $2.4 billion, not to buy the company, but to license the tech and acquihire the CEO and the R&D team, with the goal of putting out their own version of this amazing IDE. Or so we thought. Fast forward to last week, launch day, liftoff, Antigravity is released. It's supposed to be the amazing agentic IDE that lifts us all into orbit. Spoiler alert, it barely clears the launch pad before exploding. If you're expecting a revolutionarily large leap, something worth your time and hard drive space, or even just feature parity with the rest of the market, you're going to be disappointed. Windsurf, the original tech, was a beast. It introduced the idea of AI agents that could plan, refactor, and debug code with real autonomy. And now we have Google's Antigravity, which feels like a step sideways. On the surface, it looks great. Slick UI, smooth animations, that classic Google polish. But underneath, it's basically VS Code with an agent manager bolted on. Here's the issue. Antigravity talks the agent first talk, but today it doesn't deliver on the kind of true, parallel, isolated agent workflows that Cursor has already nailed. Cursor 2.0 shipped with explicit parallel agents. You can literally run multiple agents at the same time, isolated in separate work trees, comparing their outputs side by side. It's practical, it's fast, and it's real. Antigravity, yes, it technically supports multiple agents, but Google hasn't published any real limits, guarantees, or strong parallel execution tooling. In practice, it feels like a single agent workflow wearing multi-agent branding. The manager UI is there, but the seamless spin up another agent and keep moving plus new tab, it isn't there. The workflow isn't flowing. And that matters when you're vibe coding. Half your time is spent waiting for the model, waiting for refactors, waiting for analysis. Cursor solves that because you can offload different tasks to different agents at once. One patches your CSS, the other stress tests your API. You get to keep this momentum instead of staring at a progress spinner. In Antigravity, that flow breaks. You feel the bottleneck. It's like mobile development all over again. Hit build, stare at the screen, pray the spinner ends before your enthusiasm dies. Without smooth, explicit parallelism, your productive energy just evaporates. That's the difference. Cursor treats agents like coworkers. Antigravity treats them like a single slow intern. And that's to say nothing of the absolute bottleneck that is the token limits in anti-gravity. You will run out of tokens very quickly, no matter what you're doing. Anti-gravity really feels like a cash grab in that regard, which is weird for coming from Google. And it's not just me saying this. Now we're going to head over to the web and see what other people are saying about anti-gravity. There's a lot of horror stories here. In this one, they basically made everything on their computer wide open file permissions, without even a prompt saying they were going to do it. So that's obviously a huge security risk. Your AI should never make everything on your computer 777. That's like copying a 4chan advice or something from a green text. Very, very big security problem. In this one, it just deleted the entire code base. Whoops. I mean, we've seen these problems arise with other IDEs. I mean, obviously, if you want to find cursor horror stories, you can as well. But just be careful if you're using anti-gravity is my advice. There's plenty of people that have had their code base or their entire system messed up from anti-gravity. It's kind of fun to read these. This is a little bit more critical. They really point out something right away. It's great for building mock pages. I will give it that if you're trying to do something simple like, make a mock-up or do some pages, it's great. But here's the real kicker and the real problem. Google doesn't allow its own internal developers to use anti-gravity. Now, I know that that's kind of a nitpick thing. Google obviously has different needs internally than externally, but it just bothers me when a company won't use their own products. I don't know. That's something like I'm not a huge Amazon fanboy, but Amazon AWS, they use their own products, and it shows. That's what makes a product great, when all of your developers are using it. So rant over on that. So up next is the real heart of the video. This is where we're going to put anti-gravity through its paces. Now, before we actually get to using it, right here, what I'm doing is downloading and setting up this Laravel starter. This is a Livewire starter that I use for all my projects. And so now that we've got a good starting place, we're going to start using anti-gravity. And so it's basically just a bootstrap dashboard. And now I've got the full prompt that I pasted. That'll be in the video description. Basically, we're telling it we want to make some live status widgets for our dashboard. And now we're going to be working through this, creating mock endpoints. And I really felt like this was a great test of a realistic scenario. You're going to want to use a Laravel project that you might have. What's it like if you try to have anti-gravity come help you? And so Livewire is also, a great test. It's fairly new, but it's not overly complex. So I really like to use that also to test out AI coding IDEs here. And so here we've got, it's getting pretty close. Now we're going to add in the charts, where we're using chart.js and Apex charts to finish up our dashboard. And you can see that, I haven't really been doing that much. This is all pretty simple. And so it has a little bit of an issue. There's kind of a known bug with Livewire scripts not being included, and it kind of took it a second to figure out that, which I was surprised. Cursor has caught that error right away for me before. But eventually we do get work through it, and there's the charts, and there's what it ends up creating. Now that's a pretty cool dashboard, and again, it does have mock endpoints, and it's not completely just hard coded. There is some actual controllers and logic to that. But at that point, I ran out of tokens. That was it. That was all I could do, was get one page of a dashboard to work. Okay, so where does that leave us? Obviously, you've seen how far I can push Antigravity before it breaks, and it's not very far. We didn't get too far into that project before we ran out of tokens and would have had to pay money. So not a great entry point, in my opinion. Right now, this feels like a beta product designed to harvest our data or get into our wallets, and maybe this is a preview of the real version Google plans to put out later. Until they get multi-agent workflow working, this is just not even a realistic contender for anything, in my opinion. You're going to get so blown away by somebody else who has 5 or 6 agents working on their code base. Again, it's going to be like a drag race in a golf cart. It's just not good. Anyways, that is my summary and experience using the Antigravity IDE. Maybe in the future, if they make some enhancements, I'll come back and review it again. But yeah, so let me know what you think of the video in the comments. I've really had a blast making this. I hope to continue to do it and make a few more. Yeah, thanks. See you in the next one.